All right. My name is Loyal Moses, and I am the CEO of Tactical Flex, the original writer and creator of Aanval, intrusion detection console. I've been the CEO of Tactical Flex since the beginning and founded the creation of Aanval, and have been here ever since. And this morning's webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about Aanval SAS, the new incarnation of Aanval, as well as talk about the responsible security package, and we're going to cover on a topic that we're working with right now and that we're very pleased with, and that concept is situational awareness. We're going to talk more about how that theory and how that concept plays into the product and where we're going with it. A little standard disclaimer here. First and foremost, that the preferences, opinions expressed here are mine and only mine. Although I am the CEO of Tactical Flex, and we are representing Tactical Flex this morning, do keep in mind that some of my views on security are mine and solely mine. And of course, any information that we do produce or disseminate this morning is information that you should use at your own risk. Tactical Flex, we are an information security company, and information security is our business. We pride ourselves on developing tools, systems, and technologies for the information security arena. We've been in operation for nearly a decade, and over that decade, we've acquired as many as 6,000 plus customers in more than 100 countries around the world. Many people have called us the dirty little secret of the information security world, and understandably, that people don't like to talk about Tactical Flex and Aanval in their environments for the sole purpose that they don't want their enemies or attackers to know the software and systems that they are running. And that doesn't bother us too much. Tactical Flex has a few keys to success, and we believe that those keys are, one, our experience. We have a lot of experience in the information security arena. We also have a lot of experience when it comes to product support and service, business operations, and of course, product sales. That experience, of course, comes from our dedicated and motivated employees. We have a great team of employees that work very well together, located throughout the world, and we also listen to our customers. That's very important to us. When customers report bugs, software bugs, problems, have requests for features, need custom versions, implementations, code for Aanval or other products, we take that very seriously. Our job is to take care of our customers. And being that we're a very dynamic and nimble company, we can sometimes take bug fixes and feature requests, and if that matches with our product timelines, we can literally develop those features, fix those bugs, and have those in the hands of our users, sometimes in minutes, to hours to even days. So there we go. Aanval is probably the flagship product of our company. It's actually, the name Aanval is more well known than the company Tactical Flex itself. Understandably, Aanval has been around a really long time. The name fits. It's actually, it's Dutch, but it means attack in Dutch. It is Linux, Unix, and Mac OS X supported. And the IDS engines and data sources that we support are, of course, Snort, Suricata, and any syslog source data. Aanval's sole purpose, in simple, is to make sense out of millions and billions of events. So we'll talk a little bit about Aanval SAS. Aanval SAS, same thing, but with a 3-letter acronym. Ultimately, it's the newest incarnation of Aanval. It's the next phase in the product of Aanval, and SAS loosely translates to Situational Awareness System. And that's where we're really moving from the approach of a simple interface or console which represents data to where we're actually providing the view or the port to your information to help you protect and secure your network. And of course, with SAS, we introduced the responsible security package, which is something that we'll cover here shortly, more towards the end. So, what is situational awareness? So I'm sure, excuse me, I'm sure many of you have heard that term, and not just in the information security sector, but heard that term maybe throughout your life, maybe in a more military or tactical type reference. But in simple, situational awareness is the perception of the environment or of your environment. And of course, perception is subjective, right? So putting your head in the sand, it's hard to have a perception of your environment when you know nothing about what is happening above that sand. Here's a quote or definition of situational awareness by Dr. Micah Ensley, and that is that the perception of elements in the environment within a volume of time and space, the comprehension of their meaning, and the projection of their status in the near future. Okay, so ultimately, we take our environment, and we take that information over time, understand what's happening, and of course, when we do understand what's happening, we can make calculations on what may happen in the future with this information. And I know that may sound a little interesting for those that are unfamiliar with situational awareness, but it is true that the idea that knowing more about your environment can help you predict when and where attacks are going to take place. Situational awareness, of course, is more than just a buzzword, and it's more than something that just sounds, well, frankly, sounds good or sounds cool, and we're just attaching it to a product. Situational awareness is a very well-researched principle, very substantial. It's incredibly complex, and we're really working hard as a company to focus and refine its value. Of course, the term is growing in popularity. So there are a couple of people out there, a couple of organizations out there who have somewhat latched on to the term in more recent days, and I would say that a good number of them have good, honest intentions, and we want to see all of us working together to really increase this theory into more practical tools. Situational awareness has a military history. So one of the reasons that I will say America, when it comes to dogfighting in the military, is so successful is because of situational awareness and the pilot training. Pilots use situational awareness as the decisive factor in air combat. The ultimate goal being to survive that dogfight, they need to be able to observe and anticipate their opponent. SA is also found within Sun Tzu's Art of War. So those are, for those of you who are familiar with that book and the history of that book, SA is a critical component to understanding your enemy and being able to address it. Air traffic control, very complex system, network, and of course, SA is one of the key components to training and actually part of procedures and operations of air traffic control. And of course, we're going to talk today about how we turn SA on network security and how we adapt situational awareness to network security. The value from situational awareness pretty much comes from the fact that it is a proven, historically proven, and effective strategy. Tactically, for the short term, SA works in being able to quickly address issues as they take place, as they happen. Strategic, meaning that the long-term impact of SA is that over time, networks will become more secure, response times will shrink, and ultimately a network will adapt. The, of course, long-term effects or impact would be the science of SA, and that is over that longer period of time, we'll be able to predict or look into the future and know when and where attacks are going to happen. Failing situational awareness. So when situational awareness goes awry or goes wrong, and we experience information overload. Information overload ultimately is failure, right? So failure with situational awareness would be that a group of events take place on your network, and outside of a short period of time or outside of process and control, you are unable to identify or determine what steps need to take place to mitigate that particular attack. The average person exercises SA daily. So if we can all go back to the days of learning how to drive, and either from an instructor or a parent, whatever the case may be, we were always told to check your mirrors. And it was over that training, you learn to always check your mirrors. So as you're driving on the freeway, it becomes a second nature, it becomes habit to always be checking your side mirrors, always be checking your rearview mirrors. In the event something goes wrong, it becomes second nature, muscle memory to react, to find your out, to get out of the situation. And ultimately, that's what situational awareness is, except, as I mentioned earlier, the adaptation for network security. So why situational awareness? Okay, having that complete, accurate, and up-to-the-minute situational awareness is essential. Ultimately, where technological and situational complexity on the human decision maker are a concern. So, being that we're human, we make mistakes, and we can be confused. We can be faked by false positives. We can take rails and tracks that go to the wrong direction before, identifying it, too late or after the fact, and returning back when the situation is worse. There's many different factors that can affect the human decision maker, and ultimately, with situational awareness, we need to remove that from the equation as much as possible, and we do that by creating models. This is a situational awareness model, very common. It's freely available on the web. This situational awareness model looks a little complex. So what we'll do is we start from the center left, where we have levels 1, 2, and 3. And those are pretty much what we're going to focus on today. We'll make these slides available, and this presentation will also be available online. And I'm sure if you reach out and contact us, we can also send you this model. But the core components, level 1, level 2, and level 3, are very much what we described earlier. That first you have the perception of your current situation. Then you have the comprehension or understanding of that environment and that situation. And using that information, we can project future status or future events. All of the other information on that model, it very much describes how you could create controls, procedures, or controls and policies that would dictate those procedures to effectively have SA work in your environment. And we'll cover more of that here as we move on. Why practice situational awareness? So ultimately, it comes down to the volume of information that we experience. So gone are the IDS days where we're dealing with hundreds or thousands of events. We're now dealing with millions of events. We're now dealing with billions of events. Our core customers, some of our larger enterprise customers, Fortune 50 companies, are dealing with data stores in excess of hundreds of billions of events. And that's not uncommon, and that's only going to increase in size. Data storage, network monitoring, all of these factors in the simple fact that there are more attacks happening, there's better signatures, bandwidth is increasing. All of that shows that events, storage, and analyzation of this data needs to speed up. Ultimately, a mental model is something where it's the picture inside our own minds of our environment as things happen. So if we go back here, so we'll take a look at the situational awareness model. This is the ultimate prime model of how SA should work. Within this model, we have mental models. And the mental models are our own representation of our environment and how we make those local decisions. Okay? So a mental model is well-defined, right? It's highly organized, but it is dynamic. It does change based on the information that we receive. Of course, being environment, time, and the individual's experience in the industry and in the environment. So here are the potential factors that one might take or have in play in a mental model. And that, of course, would be the physical network structure. And outside physical, we would have the logical structure. We have IDS systems. We have bandwidth. We have geographical location of where we are, where our attackers may be, the geographical location between our different network segments. Of course, logging, device logs. We have different operating systems, mobile devices, where they are, where they come, where they go. We have current world threats, which of course is very popular right now, knowing what organizations, knowing what countries are involved in current threats. And of course, our own knowledge and our own experience, our own training. That all comes into play. Okay, so a mental model breakdown. This happens very much when there's information overload, when the general complexity of the situation fails us, as well as time restraints. So we've all been in a situation back when I was an analyst, it happened quite often that I had an individual standing over my shoulder and he wants that information and he wants it now. And that time restraint caused me to cut corners. It caused that mental model to break down. And when that happens, the SA system fails us. And that's precisely what Aanval SAS was designed to counter. The purpose of Aanval SAS is to prevent that information overload. Let Aanval do the heavy lifting for you. Let Aanval do the work. Aanval displays current threats, risks. It can also project future threats and risks, and it also creates a protocol for consistency. Okay, being that it sets up the rules and the process and the procedure so that an analyst can do his job and he can do it well and he can do it consistently. Okay, so complete SA requires a type of focus, and it's a narrow and wide scope view. Okay, so we have to be able to understand the larger picture, the larger environment, the larger situation that's happening, but we also need to be able to focus in on precisely that vector that demands attention. That situational awareness in Aanval, pretty much it's important to know your enemies. It's important to know where your enemies are coming from, know where your enemies are attacking, and have the systems and the processes in place to measure that, and of course have a plan of action. So in the event that there is an attack or an issue, it can be mitigated. Packets and events are too granular, right? So I know that just made a few people cringe and said, what? Packets are not too granular. I want more. Well, the truth is that in this situation, when we're talking about billions and billions of events, the actual packet information is too granular from the wide scope. Narrow scope, getting in there, digging in there, getting your hands dirty in packets and frames. Of course, that goes without saying that still is quite important and critical in a needed skill. However, the higher level representation is important, and Aanval SAS does a great job of doing that without losing too much of that granular information. Little question here would be to ask yourselves, how many of you know right now what percentage of attacks are originating from, let's say, from outside your network to Y, and Y being a particular server or a particular server group, and to know right now what that percentage is of all attacks on your network. And that information for today, or for yesterday, or the previous month, or even all time, what server or what server group in your network is the one that is most attacked? Or reverse it. Originate from inside, destined to outside. Originated from server group A to server group B. These are critical questions that we need to be able to address and have answers for in order to have situational awareness of our networks. Okay, so we all have network topology maps. Well, we all should. And those documents, even though we like to call them living documents, they may not be living. They may be dead. They may be old and dusty. For those who do keep them up to date, right? So how many have that living list? And that list that not only just is a network topology and maybe has IP addresses on it, but what list do you have that has servers, interfaces, services, ports, protocols? Essentially detailing what the access lists are, or at least where to get that information. Right? That's important. It's part of essentially the practical implementation of SA. Okay? How do we determine false positives? Okay, so we have a list of everything on our network. We have our sensors. We have an analyst that may have worked for the organization for a couple of years. How does that analyst determine what's a false positive? What's the process? Is it a lengthy process, or is the analyst doing it from memory? Well, I can tell you from experience. I was an auditor for many years, doing vulnerability and penetration testing, and determining what is and what isn't a false positive is not simple. And attempting to do it from memory, you will make mistakes. And not only will you make mistakes, but it is a waste of resources and time to continue to do it from memory. The best way to do this would be to have this automated. So that's where Aanval SAS comes in. Okay. So we'll talk let's see. We're going to take a look at that slide right there. So with the Aanval SAS, we have what's called the Situational Awareness Report. And within the Situational Awareness Report, we can show you exactly what's happening on the network for the specific devices and groups of devices, IP addresses, even ports and protocols. So as you can see for this particular slide, we show you that there were 12,393 events originated from the displayed 2 device types, representing 29.75% of total event traffic. Okay, 27,364 events were destined towards the displayed 2 device types, and of course representing 65.7% of total event traffic. Okay. Those device types, as you can see, we can list out the device types. In this simple example here, we show in the device type firewall, we have 1 devices, and of course in server we have 4. And it actually breaks it down and shows you the total number of events for those device types over the selected time period, and we show you the percentage of events for the device types as well as overall. In addition to that, we can show you the devices or the device events as the destination. So we can actually break it down and show you which firewall interface, which server, which interface, what risk level, event count, and show you exactly what those percentages are. Okay, and of course we can do that for source, naturally. So with Aanval SAS, we can actually predict what threats may and may not happen. Now, we can't tell you exactly when that 19-year-old kid's going to sit down in front of his machine after his mother took away his Xbox and jumps down and decides he's going to, hammer out some scripts or run some scripts against, a block of IPs on the net. We can't determine that specifically. However, based on the information that we have, the frequency of attacks, the destination of attacks, server types, we take all that into account, we can actually determine which servers are more frequently attacked, which ones are more likely to be attacked, where attacks are more likely to come from, and where you need to focus and concentrate your efforts, right? That can affect patch cycles, knowing where you might have a weekly patch schedule. However, you identify that there are a group of servers which are under focus right now, and that focus might come from what we talked about earlier. It might come from current world problems. It could come from the geographic location. It could come from popular software that's in the news or in the media. Whatever the case is, you can take that information, adapt it to your environment, and those groups of servers can be more frequently updated. That's a part of that threat prediction and ultimate situational awareness. Okay, so in this example here, we have server group A, if you're following along here, that receives 7% of total event traffic. Server group B receives 65% of the total event traffic. So in this example here, where would the threat be? Where would the risk be? Right? So we might look at that and say, wow, well, obviously server group B receives 65% of the total event traffic. The likelihood of the issue being there is pretty great. However, we look at, server group A. 95% of server group 7% is high risk events. Okay, 15% of server group B is high risk events. Right? So then we'll throw another perspective in there, and we can show you that, server group A really doesn't matter because 100% of the events for server group A were false positives. All right? And 5% of server group B events were false positives. So it shows you ultimately where you need to focus. And as we're analyzing events, the ultimate goal here is to not let that information cloud our judgment and cloud our view. We need to know where the threats are and what the risks are in our environment now. Not an hour from now, not 45 minutes from now, not letting reports run and taking a look at them a week later. It needs to happen now. So Aanval SAS, what we've done is we've teamed up with Nmap. And we're taking Nmap and using that to not only provide automated and manual network scanning, but we also use this for our host and device management. Okay, so here's a few of the features that use Nmap inside Aanval SAS, and that is our network host scanning module. Okay, this network scanning module is what we use to scan networks and look for hosts that are alive. We can use them to identify rogue hosts, which of course we can detect that, check it against lists of acceptable hosts, and we can alert when we do find rogue hosts that do appear on the network. Okay, offensive reconnaissance, which is very important. That's a somewhat touchy subject there, with a lot of analysts debating whether or not that's acceptable. So we kind of leave that up to the organization, leave that up to the country and local laws to determine whether or not that feature is for you. However, offensive reconnaissance is simply the theory or concept that to let the attacker know that, one, that you know he's there, give him some packets back, and two, maybe he doesn't care, could be going through a proxy, whatever the case is, but now you know. Take a look back, check what ports and services are available, identify whether or not that, it is a false positive, identify whether or not that, that is coming from that particular source, or if that's coming through a proxy or some other compromised machine or network. So offensive reconnaissance is extremely valuable. Internally on a network, it can be very valuable to pick up bot traffic and have your offensive reconnaissance reach back and scan and provide you a result, and immediately you know if that scan, the results from that scan, equate to that particular bot or that particular malware. And again, offensive reconnaissance, that's a very touchy subject, and there's a lot of debate there. So like I said, we're not going to choose sides, but we are going to provide the option, provide the tools, and we'll let your local company or corporation policies, as well as the country that you might be in and those federal local laws determine that. And false positive prevention. That's a feature that we actually call it event validation, but it is false positive prevention. And that's where we take all three of those features above, the network host scanning, rogue host detection, and offensive reconnaissance. All of that rolls together and helps us identify what events may more than likely be false positives. And we do that by having a known living list of devices, their interfaces and addresses, their ports, protocols, as well as their server roles and what roles they play on the network. And we can actually help identify and determine what may or may not be a false positive. Okay, so here is a screenshot of device management. And as you can see, it's very simple, but on the right-hand side, we have a short list of devices for this particular example in this demo install. And on the left, we have the role, description, we have IP addresses, interface names, and of course, then we have ports and protocols. And this is the information that can either be manually entered, or this can automatically be entered using that scanning engine that's built into Aanval that takes advantage of Nmap and Nmap's capabilities to do that for you on a large scale. Okay, so back to event validation. It utilizes the device management mapping, service and device role, as we mentioned, interface and addresses, ports and protocols, and it provides a simple true or false value for validation, and that information can also be exported. Okay, so here is a picture or a screenshot demonstrating the event validation. So on the left-hand side of an event, we'll see a nice little green check mark, or we'll see a gray check mark, or we'll see a gray line. The green check mark lets us know that that the event passed device and service validation, right? The gray check mark means it did not pass. And so, and ultimately the dash means that the event validation process was not performed on that event, that there wasn't enough information to make a determination for Aanval. Okay? And all of the information that I am giving out here, or that I am describing and discussing, we have a wiki that's available, and the wiki is extremely detailed and has a lot of this information that's available for anybody the public to actually walk through and browse and read more about, and that's simply at wiki.aanval.com. Very simple. Okay, so now we'll talk here a little bit about Aanval's geolocation. Okay, so geolocation is a big feature. A lot of people love that. A lot of our customers and clients like to put this information up on large displays and in network operations centers and security centers, so that they can see in real time where the threats are and what's actually happening and where they're coming from. It's mostly for visual appeal, because unless someone is actually monitoring that, 24/7 and staring at that information, then of course we all know what happens. We disappear, coffee break, restroom break, and that's when all the attacks take place. Let's see. We have real-time and static displays of that geolocation information. And it's not based on Google Maps. This is actually based on a proprietary Flash-based mapping system, which is completely internalized, which means that without an internet connection, the geolocation information will function. And of course, it's fully interactive. Zoom in, zoom out, country information, country identifying, very, very impressive. And of course, that's what we're talking about right there. So it's a completely interactive display, again, both static and real-time updating. And this particular view allows you to actually select which sensors and which, or the total number of events that you'd like displayed. The blue, I don't think there's a blue one on there. It's probably hidden under that that attack in the Pacific Northwest. But a blue circle represents a sensor, red is an attacker, and the size of the circle is the total number of events. So you can see that someone in the Pacific Northwest is really doing some damage. Okay, so we have Aanval SAS is full of the standard frequent X displays. Those same frequent displays that came from Aanval are in Aanval SAS, and they are the frequent offenders, frequent targets, ports, sensors, tags, etc. They essentially break down every component or every piece of metadata and give us charts and an ordered list of that information. Allowed us to and browse those specific categories and search for them. So here you go. Here's a zoomed in view of frequent offenders. So frequent offenders gives us our attackers in an ordered list, and it also produces some decent pie chart capabilities that are browsable, as well as a split view of the geolocation mapping. So this is a demonstration of all of the different components in Aanval in one simple display. All right, so now we'll talk for a short bit here on our event correlation system. So this is a live event correlation system, or the display that you're looking at now. Live event correlation goes through our same engine that produces our reports and produces our searching capabilities. Event correlation essentially takes events in order, looks back through a window, a large window, and matches metadata against that primary event. The primary event being that event with the star. So that's the primary event that that group of events is related to. And it shows you the confidence of the relation with a percentage. So you can see that of that primary event being that whatever that DNS response is, that Aanval believes that the second event and the third event, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh events, that they are, 98.99% related to that first event. And then you can see is that it goes down there, there's a 99, and it looks like it even drops down to a couple 89%. So Aanval was losing a little bit of confidence there. However, we'll go back here, and as you can see, Aanval does group those events together. That correlation engine is actually extremely powerful, and so Aanval at this time is the only product out there that can actually do that real-time correlation. It's very processor and memory intensive, and we do allow you to adjust the window size. However, we do put constraints on that. We don't need people trying to correlate a billion events in real time. And the responsible security package. as we get close to wrapping up this afternoon, or this morning for me. It is ultimately, without budget constraints and cost constraints and without software limitations, you need to ask yourself, how much of your network would you monitor? What would you monitor? Where would you place sensors? If there wasn't a budget, if there wasn't a software cost or limitation, where would you monitor? And the answer to that is probably everywhere, right? You'd have sensors on the outside. You'd have sensors on the inside. You have sensors in every network segment. You'd be dividing traffic up, across multiple sensors for performance. You'd want every packet in your environment monitored. Current software paradigms don't allow you to do that. And even the original Aanval for the last 8 years didn't allow you to do that. And the reason so is because that cost is either based on the total number of events that you process or pull through your system. So then ultimately you're penalized for identifying more wrongdoing on your network. Or two, it's based on sensor licensing, right? So like the old Aanval model based on how many snort, how many syslog sensors that you did have. And ultimately that is a penalty. Simple penalty to say, hey, you have more sensors, you must be a bigger company, you need to give us more money. However, over the years, we've seen small organizations that really want to focus on security, or small organizations that have a real need to focus on security, and some, or maybe even some mid-sized organizations. They deploy 10 sensors, and that can quite easily break a budget. So we changed our model. And Aanval SAS introduces what we call the responsible security package. And that is simply unlimited snort sensor capability, unlimited suricata, and unlimited syslog source data. So for that one simple cost, right, easy to budget, not too hard on budgets, it includes support, very simple, which means that organizations of all sizes can simply deploy as many sensors as they need or want or require for that same cost. And that same cost can be budgeted quite easily and included and doesn't change. So the difference in SAS, we have two options for Aanval SAS, and that is the Aanval SAS Standard and Aanval SAS Enterprise. So Standard, of course, includes business hour support, and it's designed mostly for small and medium-sized businesses. SAS Enterprise includes 24-hour support, and it is designed for organizations with 250 nodes or larger. Okay, so there's our delineation there. So that's not the penalty, but that is a delineation, because larger organizations have a larger footprint and they do require greater levels of support. And Aanval, the product itself is enterprise class, and Tactical Flex as an organization, we do provide excellent support and an excellent product. And it's important that large-scale or enterprise-class organizations fall into the category where their needs can be met at the same rate and level that a small and medium-sized business does. And I believe I'm going to take a quick gander down here momentarily here and look at some questions that have popped up while we're here. All right. Looks like the questions are about getting slides. So yes, we'll actually produce the slideshow. The slideshow will be placed on the Aanval website, or at least a place where you can get access to it, maybe the wiki. And we will also be placing the webinar online so that it can be reviewed. I hear there's a question or two about the audio quality. Maybe when we actually do that recording, if it is bad enough that we can actually increase that audio level in the recording and get that packaged up and put online. So it looks like it's about 11:47 or so Pacific, and that's about the time that we wanted to wrap up. If you have any questions at all, definitely feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to speak with you to help answer your questions. The main number for Tactical Flex is 800-921-2584. Again, my name is Loyal Moses, and my email address directly is lmoses@tacticalflex.com. And definitely feel free to shoot me an email or even a phone call if you need anything. And for existing customers, contact support if you need assistance. And for sales inquiries, or if you want to learn more about the product, or get hands-on and have one of our support crew get in there and actually install the product for you and demonstrate it for you, yeah, just let us know. We'll be more than happy to help. Great. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.